You said at the beginning that people say we're not interested in politics, which is fine, but ultimately politics is interested in you because your life depends on politicians, so get into it. Now, one of the things that we've always said is a problem with Indian politics is that people like us, people like you, educated with an international outlook, progressive, don't get into politics. But when they do, as you've seen, they're actually bitten to bits by other people like us. Isn't that ironic?
It's perhaps part of the national character, Veer. What can I say? We seem to specialize sometimes in pulling people down and relishing it. I mean, Schadenfreude is a German word, which means taking great pleasure at the misfortunes of others. But the truth is that it's somehow there should have been an Indian word for it because it's a very common habit in our country. But anyway, I'm not sure that politics is the only field. I suspect in probably every profession. I don't know what your media world is like.
Not
as
bad.
Sure,
not as bad.
Not that bad.
No.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. But what the heck? I mean, I at this point, what you do is you just say, you'll do the best you can. And when I'm often advising kids about, being the best version of themselves they can be, ultimately it's about knowing yourself and doing the best you can. I mean, the Gita is actually an incredibly useful guide that way. Do the right thing, do the thing right, and don't worry about the consequences or the reward. As long as you know in your heart that what you're doing is right and sincere and honest, do the best you can. And that's been my guiding principle throughout life, Veer, as well. And so I took all this in stride simply because I knew that my conscience was clear. Yep. I knew that people could accuse me of things, but that I hadn't done them. So why was I going to allow them to define me in my own eyes? I wasn't going to do that.
A final question. I'm looking at this audience. We did a session here, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, when we did it inside and there clearly wasn't enough room. There were people spilling out outside because people come to hear you. I'm continually told, and I was told before that session, that the secular consensus is dead. Liberals have lost the argument. Just talk to any young person. They believe in Hindutva. They believe in a more authoritarian form of government. And yet there you were at that session talking about secularism, talking about liberalism, having a largely young audience cheering. You have this audience here today listening to you to talk about it. So explain this paradox. Is India really becoming this less liberal, less secular country?
No, I mean, the truth is that the toxin of bigotry has been successfully injected into the veins of our society, particularly across North India. It's very much less true in the South. Yeah. But the fact is that in our country, nothing very easily captures a majority. I often do point out that the BJP has won its power in the first election with 31%, second election with 37%, third election with 36%, which means they haven't even persuaded a majority of Hindus that they're right, because there are 80% of us are Hindu, and so 41% at least would show they have a majority of Hindus. They haven't got that. So there are enough people who disagree with them. But then our country, the numbers are so vast that all of these people, frankly, could all vote for me and I could still lose my deposit. That's our country. I will say, though, that I think there's something about the basic nature of India that gives me a great deal of hope and confidence that we will overcome even the periods of intolerance and bigotry that periodically raise their head. This morning there was a very interesting session on Hinduism. We had Frances Miralles had written a book on Hinduism. I'd written a foreword to it. I've written a book on Hinduism or two. And one of the things that I argued was from within the faith. That I actually am somebody who can proudly say I'm a Hindu, but my understanding of Hinduism, anchored in extensive reading of the classic Hindu texts, but at the same time selecting what I wish to adhere to as Hinduism permits me to, does not or is not compatible with this other view of Hinduism as Hindutva, as, the hooliganism of the British football fan that says, if you support our team, you're with us, and if you don't support our team, we're going to hit you on the head. I mean, that is not Hinduism, but that's what some people have reduced Hinduism to in our politics. And therefore, I think it's possible to argue against that not only from a secular, liberal perspective, but also from a believer's perspective. And that's what I've been trying to do. That you can be absolutely a convinced Hindu and say that this is actually a disservice to my faith. And I have said to many members of the Sangh Parivar that tying a Muslim to a tree and flogging him to death until he says Jai Shri Ram is not Hindu Dharma, is not my Hindu Dharma, and they can't tell me it's theirs. So let us stand up. Let us stand up for the best things about our faith and continue opposing the things that surely, whether you're secular or a believer, whether you're a liberal or a conservative, you can acknowledge as a human being are wrong. And that's frankly what I've taken on as a bit of a mission. I'm not going to be around in politics forever, and I certainly believe in making way for younger people to have a crack at these things. And I certainly hope that more and more educated, bright, young people will come and contribute to our political space. But nonetheless, as long as I have a voice, and I've said this before, Veer, but I'll ask you to indulge me in saying it again. I know I'm already an ex-minister. I realize one day I'll be an ex-MP. But I'm never going to be an ex-writer, which is why I keep coming to JLF. And I'm going to continue writing and I'm going to continue speaking because all of us as citizens of India are entitled to have a stake in the India that matters to us. And if we have a vision, I think the only argument for politics is to have a vision of a better country, a better society, and to work for it, to speak for it, to stand up for it in the policy space. And what you then do is you just go out and do the best you can to persuade enough of the voters that your vision is better than the other person's vision. And until that happens, I'll be there raising my voice. And as far as I'm concerned, we can be a better India, we can be a better society, and we can be an India that every one of us will be proud of. Thank you all very much.